Hi, my name is Pat Dickey, and I'm going to be doing a series of videos over Kubuntu Linux, describing the overview of it, which will kind of get you introduced to the desktop, and then I'll go into the programs and features that are installed by default, and then I'll go into configuring Kubuntu, where I'll show you how to update it, install features and programs using the GUI and using the command line, adding users and things like that that you might be interested in doing. A good how-to to get you started. You might be asking why Kubuntu, and that's what this video is going to discuss. You're probably watching this on Windows, probably Windows XP if it's an older computer, Windows Vista or Windows 7 if you're on a newer computer, and you're probably thinking, well, I'm on Windows and I'm happy with Windows, why would I want to switch? Or you might be watching it on a Mac and you might be thinking the same thing, well, I'm on a Mac, why would I want to switch? The advantages of Kubuntu over Windows and Mac, there's a lot of them. The first thing you have to look at is cost, and that's the biggest advantage amongst them. If you're going to upgrade from XP to Windows 7, you're going to pay $200, maybe $100 if you want the very basic. Reasonably, you're probably going to pay $200 to $300 for a fairly well-featured version. You might even pay upwards to $500 if you want everything, the ultimate version. Personally, I've got the ultimate version of Windows 7. I like it, but it's not worth paying $500 for unless you need things like BitLocker. I've got the business version, and that works for me just as well for what I do. But it's personal preferences. So next, you've got Mac OS. Mac OS is tied to Macintosh hardware. Granted, it's made by Dell, and it's an Intel processor, but it's still Macintosh hardware. The thing of that is, if you look at the hardware specs of a Macintosh, and then you compare them to a regular Dell with the same hardware specs, you're paying probably $400 to $500 more for that Macintosh name and Mac OS than you would be for the Dell running Windows 7 or Linux for that matter. So Linux costs zero, nothing. It costs you the amount that it takes to download the image. It might cost you a CD or a DVD depending on which image you download. So what, 20 cents? Figure you pay $50 a month for internet and it takes you an hour, probably 25 cents, for the CD and the download time. So 25 cents versus $200. 25 cents versus $999. I don't see why you wouldn't want to spend it. So the other thing is hardware. As I said, the Macintosh operating system will run on Macintosh hardware, which, while you can get it to run if you tweak it, you can get it to run on anything or on different hardware, you're breaking their your end user license agreement, and you're risking problems from Apple. Depending if you're one person doing it, they're not really going to look at you. But if you're a company like SciStar that was making computers and selling them, you're risking a lawsuit. Windows, it'll run on Intel and AMD chips, processors. It'll run on pretty much any computer you can buy out there today, and it'll run on mobile phones, some of them, but you have to pay for it. And Windows 7, it might run on a Pentium 2. I've seen it run on a Pentium 2. It takes 17 minutes to boot. So you could probably run it on your Pentium 3 or your 400 megahertz Pentium, like an old Gateway's Essential. It's probably going to take 5 minutes to boot. it's hardware intense. So Linux, as far as that goes, you can take Linux and put it on that old Pentium 2 and it boots in a couple minutes. You can replace your XP computer, replace XP with Linux, and it'll boot faster than XP did. You can take it and put it on your Macintosh and it'll boot on your Macintosh. You can put it on a Spark, which is a type of server. You can put it on Sun's servers. You can put it on your router. In fact, if you bought certain routers, like Linksys, certain Linksys routers, it's running Linux underneath. You can put it on your phone. You know, pretty much anything will run Linux. As long as somebody has put it on there before you, you can run it. So the hardware requirements for Linux are a lot lower than they are for Windows. Basically, Linux will run on what Windows leaves behind. And with XP nearing the end of its service life in, I believe, 2014 or so, you're either going to have to upgrade or risk viruses, because they're no longer going to do security updates after that. So, and they're probably going to try and push it sooner because they want you to pay money to upgrade to Windows 7. So, what do you do with that old XP computer? Well, you can throw it in the garbage. That's environmentally bad. You can recycle it. Okay, that's environmentally good. Or you can reuse it with Linux. As I said, Linux, you have the issue of security. Because Windows has a 90 to 95% user base, everybody's writing viruses and spyware that runs on Windows. Because Mac OS has about a 5 to 10% user base, they're not really looking at it, but they are kind of looking at it. There are a few Mac OS viruses out there, but not very many. I think there's maybe a handful, 12, 15, something like that. Because Linux has a 1% user base as far as desktops go, there are no viruses out there for Linux. There might be one or two, and they're old enough that everybody knows about them, and they've probably already been patched to block them. So that's the most important thing right there, is the security aspect. You won't find an antivirus installed on a Linux computer by default. I recommend that you put one on, but you don't have to. And if you do install one, it's not going to scan Linux files per se. It's going to scan Windows files that are on the Linux disks, on the hard drives, because the Windows files are more likely to have a virus than a Linux file. Now, that being said, things like Shockwave Flash and your browser and different things can still potentially infect you, but their payloads won't work, because a Linux binary file is not the same type as a Windows binary file. They don't run. You can't run a Linux binary file on a Windows, and you can't run a Windows binary file on Linux. You can through emulation, which is like CYGWin on Windows, or MinWin on Windows, or on Wine on Linux. But that's emulating the other operating system. You can't just double-click an exe file on Linux and have it run without Wine installed. And likewise, you can't double-click a Linux file in Windows and have it run without CYGWin or MinWin installed. So it's inherently safer in that respect. Anyhow, like I said, the series is going to cover how to use Kubuntu, and I'm open to suggestions for what you'd like to see as far as features or programs or how to do things. In the description I'll have my blog, which is patscompservices.blogspot.com, and you can feel free to go there and add comments or make requests through it, and I'll be more than happy to honor them if I can. So until the next video, thank you and have a great day. One other thing I should note before I go. The the way I'm doing my Linux is using a virtual machine called VMware or VirtualBox, one or the other. The reason I'm doing that is because YouTube only allows a certain size screen, and it's easier to put it into VMware and do everything through there than it is to try and set my screen size to that size and work with it. The other reason I'm pointing that out is you might notice things like the cursor will say, you know, there might be a little thing that pops up saying press Control-Alt-Delete to get out or something. There might be a little delay in doing things because it has to go through the virtual machine before it does the process. So I just wanted to give you fair warning, things might be slow, and that's why. When you install Kubuntu or any Linux on your computer, it's going to run a lot faster than it will in the videos. Again, thank you and have a great day.